If you could speak directly to every Jewish parent listening right now, what would you want them to understand about the power of Jewish education?
It's a really, really good question. One of the things that we often hear is, oh, if I send my kid to a Jewish school, they're going to be secluded and isolated and just be with people that are like them, and they're not going to experience the real world. I think that the real world is scary.
Yeah.
And I think that in order to be able to truly face the real world, you need to be comfortable with who you are.
That if you stand with Hashem and you stand for what's right, you will march across the finish line. You will have victory.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to another episode of That Jewish Podcast. I am your host, as always, Yirmiyahu. I hope you guys had a wonderful weekend, had a wonderful Shabbos. We're back at it for a whole nother good week. Listen, if you haven't done so already, please like this podcast, rate this podcast on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, wherever you're listening to this at. Please put this on your favorites list. If you haven't done so already, tell someone about this podcast. All right. You're sharing the podcast, you reviewing the podcast, liking the podcast really helps in the podcast world algorithm as well. If you're listening to this on YouTube, please just give this a thumbs up as well. And share it. Let's get right into this episode, ladies and gentlemen. This episode is a tad bit different. I got the wonderful opportunity to spend some time with the head of school, Dr. Daniel Weiss at Bornblum Jewish Community School here in Memphis, Tennessee. And we had a wonderful conversation about antisemitism, about my journey. So you get to learn more about my journey that you haven't heard on, even some stuff that you haven't heard on this podcast, as well as the importance of a strong Jewish education to create a strong Jewish identity, to create strong Jewish communities, because I don't believe that anti-Semitism is defeated with trying to convince people how good we are. Because the people who don't like us, they don't like us. And at this point, I don't think there's any getting through to them. But what we can do is we can strengthen the generation coming up behind us so that they can feel strong in who they are, not try to hide who they are, truly build Yiddishkeit, and have a strong Jewish community moving forward. So, I was able to get on their podcast. It's called The Spark. The link to their podcast will be in the show notes. It's a very good podcast, another podcast to add to your library as well. So without further ado, this is my conversation with Dr. Daniel Weiss from Bornblum Jewish Community School here in Memphis, Tennessee. I hope you guys enjoy.
We're going to do like a dual podcast.
I will try.
All right, we're gonna try a dual podcast because I'm joined by my friend Yirmiyahu Yosef, who has a podcast called
That Jewish Podcast.
That Jewish Podcast. Yeah. And so we're going to do a joint podcast of The Spark and That Jewish Podcast. And we're going to see how it goes. Hopefully everybody likes what they have to hear, and we'll just see what happens.
Let's see what happens.
All right. So I'm going to start, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background, and why you think I brought you here to have this conversation.
I have no clue why you brought me here. No, I'll play.
It's because I like you, because we're buds.
But a little bit about myself. So I'm a Midwest kid. You're familiar with that. You're raised, unfortunately, in Ohio, but I'm raised in Illinois, a better state. But neither here nor there. In the middle of nowhere, country kid. I was raised Christian, actually. So. I think most people in Memphis are familiar with the Church of God in Christ. If you've been here for 5 minutes, you probably know who they are. My mother. And
your parents gave you the name Yirmiyahu?
No. We can get there. I'll give you the Sparks Notes version of all that. But raised in just a traditional American home. Came to Memphis for school. I had a lot of questions about my faith, about my religion. I went to a Christian school, Crichton College, no longer exists. Had a lot of fun there, but had a lot of questions that my professors, the pastors, all these, they couldn't answer any of these questions. Simple questions too, just about some of the scriptures I was reading in the Christian Testament, how it kind of contradict what I was reading in what they would call the Old Testament, what we call Tanakh, and I was very curious. So I, long story short, at the age of 32, completely left the Christian church. I'm 40 now, so it's been a long time since I even stepped into any kind of other religious service outside of a Jewish one. And then I met Rabbi Finkelstein through a bunch of happenstance emails and started a GER process and did about 2 years of that through the CRC, and now I'm here. And
So the CRC, which is the Chicago Rabbinical Council, but you
Correct.
learned with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein here in town. What was that like, the learning with him?
It was intense.
And it wasn't just you.
No, it wasn't just me. It was, I think, 3 other families that were learning.
Right, families.
Yes,
so this
families.
is something that you and your
Yes.
family did together.
Yes, whole family. So I have 3 girls, I have a wife and 3 girls, and we did it all together. But it was very intense. So it's everything a regular Jewish person would start to begin knowing at the age of 3 until their bar bat mitzvah, we had to learn in about 2 years. So it was a fast track.
How often were you guys learning?
Every week for an hour.
And what was like the most interesting thing that you learned, or your favorite topic that you were learning about?
Let me think. My favorite topic. I think my favorite topic was Shabbos. Obviously, I have an excuse to my job to tell them I have a day off, that I can't come in on the weekend. So yeah,
And the holidays also.
The holidays as well. Yeah, the Pesach's coming up. I already have it written out on my calendar. I'm taking the whole week off, and no one fusses about it.
And how did your job take that? Because you were working there. You work for Nike,
Right.
And you were working for Nike well before you became a convert to Judaism.
Correct.
And what was that like in terms of them now looking at you wearing tzitzit, right? You're sitting next to me, you're wearing your tzitzit, you got your kippah on, and you're working at Nike, and they see this transformation in you, and now all of a sudden you can't work on Saturdays, you can't work on the Jewish holidays. How did that go over with them?
Well, thankfully, Nike is very generous. They're very inclusive, which helps me. So obviously there's questions like, how do you pronounce your new name? So at work, I just go by YB because it's easy. So first 2 initials of my name, and why don't you eat in the cafeteria with us anymore? Or why don't you heat your food up? Like, what is this weird thing that's heating your food? There's all these questions that you have to answer, which I'm okay with doing, very open about my journey, about the transition. And there's so far the people who want to know, they ask. The people who can care less or are not too, friendly to the Jewish people, they won't. And I don't know them. So. Yeah.
So how do you feel about your Judaism now that it's been a year?
It's been a year. March will be a year, and then Purim will be the full cycle of all the Jewish holidays as a Jew.
So we're right up against it. How does your first year as a Jew feel compared to the 2 years of learning?
It's easier to be an actual Jew than to go through the GER process.
What was so difficult about the conversion process compared to being a Jew now?
Your future is kind of not in your hands. Like it's up to the Ed.D. They're in Chicago. It's up to them to say, hey, you've learned enough. You haven't learned enough. You're not too sharp on this. You need to get sharper on that. And everything's up in the air. You don't know. But now I know. I mean, I can walk into the synagogue. I can wrap my tefillin. I can pray. I can put on my talis. I'm Jewish. Like I'm not waiting on someone from a Bet Din to tell me what I can and can't do anymore. Obviously, I still, reach out to the rabbis if, I accidentally put my milkig fork in the Flashik dishwasher, and what do I do with that? But outside of those things, it's pretty easy going. Yeah.
So just about a year ago, you finished the conversion, and you had to get married again.
I did. That was weird.
I was there. It was pretty awesome. I mean, it was like just the nicest, coolest feeling to see a family really that has made this transition, that made this journey together, and here you are celebrating a marriage again, even though you'd been married for so many years already.
Yeah. So we were already married at that time for 15 or 16 years. My wife Hannah would know more of the years, but I'm probably bad at that. I probably shouldn't say that podcast. But
she's not going to listen anyway.
Who knows? But yeah, we'd already been married. I already had all our kids. My oldest kid is 15 now, and even Rabbi Finkelstein was like, I don't know if. Like, I've done a lot of these. Most people don't bring their kids because, in the most Jewish weddings, the people's kids aren't there because they haven't had kids yet. So people may take it some kind of way, but I was like, my kids want to experience this. Why not?
They looked happy at the wedding. I remember.
Yeah. So they had a lot of fun. And just us, it was just like another, because we're not, neither one of us are huge on like ceremony, right? So it's our first wedding was literally me, her, a pastor, 4 of my friends, 2 of her friends, and then both our parents because they wanted to come. So, but that was it. So it was like 10 people because we wanted it to be.
So you brought up your parents.
Yeah.
How did your parents deal with the family's conversion?
Yeah. So initially, my broader family is not really religious. So I have a small sect of my family, my mother, a couple of her siblings who are religious. My mom didn't take it well at first. She's like, and it's not because of the Judaism part. It's because she understood, okay, this means separation in some type of form. Really, I don't think she really cared about me or Hannah. She was like, is this going to stop me from seeing my grandkids? And after we, assured her, like, no, there's things that we can do. There's ways we can help you out in the kitchen. And we've bought, pots, and we've told them, and we let her know as long as, Grace or Chloe or somebody turns on the stove, like, you're good, and all these other different things that she can do to have them over so they can eat and have fun and still have a normal life with the grandparents. So once she knew that her grandkids were not like going anywhere, she was fine. She was fine with it. My other family, and I'm sure you've had interactions with very fundamentalist Midwestern Christians, and they're just the ones that are religious is just like, why would you do that to yourself? So they're not really on board, but the rest of my family is like, they don't really care. As long as you're not robbing somebody and you're living a good life, who cares? Who cares what you're doing?
Wow. All right, what do you got for me? We're gonna come back to you. Don't worry.
Yes,
I got plenty more for you.
Oh, okay. I'm here for it. So on that Jewish podcast, I talk a lot about how to combat anti-Semitism in a different way. Not just petitioning Washington D.C., not just marching, but I say that the biggest weapon against anti-Semitism is an educated Jewish person. So if you know who you are, you know your identity, you're familiar with your own culture, like no one else can take that from you. No one can tell you who you are. Obviously, we have a lot of uneducated Jewish people. And then, since the war, we've seen, unfortunately, a lot of those who were on the side of those who would want to destroy a Jewish state or want to destroy the Jewish people. And they were marching right alongside them, unfortunately. But so can you share, and I know you have a very a background that's what's the word I'm looking for? It's a mosaic. So it's different places, whether that's Cleveland or Las Vegas or Miami. And so share a little bit about your background and how your own Jewish journey shaped the way you see Jewish education today.
So I really grew up in a very homogeneous way, right? I went to a Jewish day school as a young child. We were very active in our synagogue. I grew up in Cleveland, which had a large Jewish population. Even when I went to public school for middle school and for high school, the school that I went to was 95% Jewish as a public school. So I was always surrounded by Jews and embraced my Judaism and always loved who I was. I never shied away from it. It wasn't really until I got to Ohio State. And we've talked about, that I'm a Buckeye and you sometimes root for that team up north, but we won't talk about that.
Yeah, we won't.
So when I was at Ohio State, here I had a long ponytail and I still wore a kippah. And I was exploring really who I was as a Jew. And there were plenty of instances where I was surrounding myself with people where I was the first Jew that they ever met.
Oh, wow.
And I had to think about, what was my interaction going to look like with them? How was I going to have a conversation with them? Explaining some of the same things that you brought up, right? I keep kosher, but that doesn't mean I can't talk to you. It doesn't mean that we can't sit down and have a meal together. There are ways to be able to do that. So to really be able to figure that out was very important for me as a, 18, 19, 20-year-old. at Ohio State, there were people, I remember on the Oval, which is like the big grassy area in the middle of the campus, they would have people there like preaching and trying to proselytize and do all different types of things. And I was, this punk-nosed, smarty pants kid that like, I would take my tefillin and I would go stand next to them while they're preaching to people, and I would just wrap tefillin next to them.
Oh, wow.
Because I was like the let's get in your face kind of guys. Yeah. And I didn't realize really the agitation that I was probably doing by doing that, the provoking that I was doing. I probably wouldn't do the same thing today. Yeah. I think that it's strange because I'm obviously a proud Jew, right? I wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm very proud to be a Jew. I'm very proud to be a Zionist. I'm very proud to do Jewish education and try and teach our children the right way to be in terms of morals and values and ethics and how to treat other people with respect. And yet there are times that I'll go somewhere and I'll put a hat on my head rather than just wearing my kippah. Or I'll be traveling, driving up to Cleveland with my family, and I'll tell my kids, stick your seat in your pocket and put your hat on before we walk into Buc-ee's. Gotcha. Right? And it's strange because I don't want to hide that I'm a Jew, and yet at the same time, I'm afraid of how other people might react to the fact that I'm a Jew. Yeah. There have definitely been times that anti-Semitism has been thrown in my face, that it's really hit us pretty hard. I think in almost every city that we've lived in, there was a time when we were walking to synagogue or walking back from synagogue, and a car would pull down the street and somebody would yell something anti-Semitic or anti-Zionist at us. And I know that sometimes there's a difference between the two, but it doesn't feel like it in the moment, that's for sure. And I never really knew how to react to those things. I live in a world where I don't want my kids to experience that. And that's why I was asking you some of the questions that I was asking, right? You're a black man living in America. Yeah. You can't hide from that identity. And yet you chose to also be Jewish. Right. I mean, I can put my kippah on, but I can put a hat over my head and I'm like hiding from it. You can't hide from that identity. And yet you're also taking on. It's very hard. And for me, I think that's why I went into education. And that's why I do the things that I do, because I want to make the world a better place. And I think that starts by educating kids not to hate, not to judge another person. We can have different beliefs, we can have different cultures, we can have different races, but we're still one people. Right. And to me, that's the most important thing. And I think, Rabbi, it's interesting because a couple of weeks ago we were at Saturday morning services. We were at shul on Shabbat morning, and Rabbi Lichter was giving a Devar Torah. And I know you wore that blue pin for a while, right? That blue pin that Robert Kraft put out, and I have mine also. Yeah. And I think it's a really strong statement. And there was a conversation that morning that the rabbi was talking about a blog post by Shabbos Kestenbaum, I think is his last name. That's right. And he was basically saying that why are we spending millions of dollars to make a 30-second spot for a Super Bowl commercial when that money should be given to Jewish day schools? Yeah. Such a strong statement from the rabbi, and it's so true, right? We need to invest in Jewish day school education. You're doing that by sending your kids to the Hebrew Academy. I'm doing it by sending my kids here and also to the Hebrew Academy, right? We're doing it because we believe in Jewish education, and that's why our donors give to our schools the way that they do. We need to invest more in that, because when we're educating our kids to combat anti-Semitism, when we're teaching our kids to love their neighbor as themselves, to treat other people with morality, with ethics, with values, then we're doing something that's really important, right? You're setting an example for your kids by what you did. That's why they've come on the journey with you, right? They're teenagers. And so they had to be asked, do you want to convert? They needed to learn the things. They weren't just converted because you and Chava converted. They needed to be on the same page. And that's because of the example that the two of you set for them. Right.
Right. I think, I guess here's a question that's not on the page that's opened up. So you've mentioned tucking in zit seats, covering the kippah. That's also a part of, in my opinion, also educating about there's situational things, right? So I tell my kids all the time, when you're in a parking lot or whatever, look around.
Know your surroundings.
Look around. Know your surroundings. Understand where you are. Like I would probably do the same thing if I'm like, because I go to Atlanta a lot. So if I'm at the Buc-ee's in Leeds, Alabama, I'll probably tuck in my ZZs cover. You know, I'm like you said, I'm already black. Like I'm getting a double dose now, because if anybody doesn't know about Leeds, Alabama, when you go like 15 minutes east, there's like a slur of like Confederate flags, and everybody, you know, the South will rise again. All that foolishness is going on down there. But is there a point where you also as being a Zionist, is there a point where you also educate, like, listen, if we're in Israel, we don't have to do this. Like, making Aliyah is also important as a Jew. Maybe not. I know there's a conversation going on right now. Is it an obligation? Is it a mitzvah? Do you have to do it, or can you stay in Gullus if you want to? But what is your take on all that, like Aliyah, going to Israel, being your full self as a Jew, instead of having to hide?
Yeah. So I'll say one thing before I fully answer that question. There was a time about I want to say it was about a year and a half ago. So it was definitely after October 7th. And I was at the Kirby Kroger. I wasn't wearing a hat. I had my kippah on my head. You know, I was probably buying kosher meat there. Yeah. And a lady stops me in the middle of the aisle. It was like by the bread aisle. I remember exactly where I was. and she looks at me and she says, "I just want you to know that I pray for Israel every day." And so, like, I think sometimes to myself, there are people who stand up, and there are people who aren't going to say something anti-Semitic to me when they see my kippah. Instead, they're going to give me a virtual hug. And they're going to recognize the society that we're living in, and that they're not okay with that. Yeah. And so, like, that quick little interaction with somebody made me feel so good that it also made me question whether or not it makes sense to put on that hat or to tuck in this seat. Not everybody's going to come at you with anti-Semitic vitriol. Sometimes they're going to come at you with, "I'd love to know more about who you are and what you believe." The question about Aliyah is a good question. I make it no secret that Jessica and I have talked about one day making Aliyah, not like in the tomorrow future, but in the future. Where I struggle with Aliyah for somebody like me is exactly what I was saying before, that I see my role as an educator, and it's educating people to treat other people nicely, to be proud of being Jewish, to not be afraid of who they are. They don't need somebody like me doing that in Israel as much as they need somebody like me doing that in America. Yeah. So I think that there are places for all of us to do those things. Do I see that as a place that I would like to be one day? Yes, partly because I believe that some of my children will want to be there, and also because at some point in my life, I feel like that's going to be the right place for me to be at that point in my life. I don't think that all Jews need to be in Israel. I think the opposite is true. Gotcha. I think that diaspora Judaism is very important. I think it's essential, because if all of the Jews were living in Israel, then it makes us an easier target in some way. Because people become a target when they are the unknown. Yeah. And when you have as small of a Jewish population as we are, when you have Jews living in places like Memphis, and we're a small Jewish population here, but people know about Jews and Judaism because we're here. Yeah. You know, you don't have to be 100,000 Jews like Cleveland, or 250,000 like Chicago, right? You can be 8,000 Jews, and your city's going to know who you are. So I do believe that it's really important that Jews are living in the diaspora, because that knowledge, that learning, that connection, hopefully will end some of that anti-Semitism that exists. Yeah. Well, one more question before I guess give it back over to you to come back to me. So if you spent 25 years, is that right? 25 years or a little bit more? A little bit more than that in education now, yeah. Well, I got all this stuff offline, so no, you're good. Trying to get it. You did your homework. You spent 25 or more years in Jewish day schools. Was there a specific moment when you realized Jewish education wasn't just a profession, but it was your life's mission? At a young age, I had an idea that I wanted to go into education or the rabbinate. Okay. It was probably all the way back in like middle school that I knew that I wanted to be a professional Jew, whatever that meant. You know, I flirted for a little while with the idea of going into nuclear pharmacology.
Wait, you can't just blaze past
so
that.
I'm gonna explain it. So my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, owned a pharmacy, and I was really interested in the stuff that was going on at the pharmacy, and I loved working there and being part of the world that he was in. And so at one point I'm like, oh, nuclear pharmacology of like designing and creating medications could be a really cool profession that could really help a lot of people. And then I took chemistry in high school, and my chemistry teacher looked at me and said, "You are not a scientist." and the grade in the grade book definitely said, it said Dan is not a scientist, but the D was really big because that was the grade.
No.
And I knew so I knew it was not really going to happen anyway, but so I knew that there was going to be some like professional Jewish something.
Yeah.
I really wanted to go to rabbinical school for a long time. Even through most of college, my plan was to go to rabbinical school. And when I went for the interview, there was something about the school that I went to that didn't sit right with me, and I didn't think it was going to be the right place for me. And so instead, I was a Jewish studies major at Ohio State, and then I got my master's degree in Jewish education and started teaching the same time I was working on the master's degree. And at that point, I knew that teaching wasn't going to be the whole part of my career. Unfortunately, because I felt like I wouldn't be able to take care of a family just on a teacher's salary, which is a whole nother topic to talk about, because we know the work that teachers do, and they're vastly underpaid.
Absolutely.
But I knew that I wanted to make a bigger difference and be not just a teacher, but really have an imprint on the entire school. And so I wanted to go into administration. And the first boss that I had, Rabbi Jim Rogozin, he knew that, and he knew that that was my goal, and he really mentored me during those first years.
That's
and
awesome.
Helped to push me into doing that. Since I've gotten my doctorate, and now I'm actually in rabbinical school and working on getting that rabbinic ordination now a little bit later in life. But, it's more because I've always felt that was the missing piece for me.
Got it.
And Jessica said you need another degree, and she didn't want me to get another doctorate. So I guess that's where I ended up.
There you go.
Yeah. Tell me about your education and what got you into the work that you're doing now.
Sure. So my education journey is all over the place. So I'm from Carbondale, Illinois. Very proud to be a Southern Illinoisan. If anybody knows anything about Illinois is kind of like Tennessee. So you have Tennessee, then there's Memphis. So in Illinois, you have Southern Illinois. It's a completely different world. Even to the point when I was in high school, there was a petition that went around to try to secede from Illinois to make us the 51st state.
Really?
Yes. So we would have been the poorest state in the world, but we would have loved it. But anyhow, went to Carbondale Community High School, the Terriers. It's also the home of Salukis. There's a huge university there. Yeah. Literally, that's the only thing that was there. We had a Maytag, but that left and went to Mexico. But the university is the only thing that is there. So if you are born and raised in Carbondale, you know somebody, you go to school with somebody, you bump into people, whether it's a college student, a professor, so education is ingrained into that very small farm community, to the point where there's even a part of the school that teaches you how to farm. You can get a degree in that, which was amazing. But I knew as a young kid, I didn't like school. I didn't like it. I couldn't wait till the day I finished high school and just be done with it forever. That's what I thought in my head. I'm going to be done with it forever. I'm going to work, just make a bunch of money, and I'll never have to go back to school again. So I tried to do that, my first year out of high school. And I learned very quickly that you can't live on $7.50 an hour. You need some type of educational background to help you. So I moved to Memphis, came here, did not finish my degree, but I did go to a school that had a lot of connections. And I'm a big believer in making connections, building relationships, not just for the sake of getting something. I mean, you get to give as well. It's a give and get, but you never know when those things will circle back around and kind of help you out. So I've had, my old friends used to tease me that I've had a million jobs in Memphis because I get bored easily. So I would work someplace, make some good money, get promoted really quick. And then 6 months later, I'm like, guys, this has been great, but I think I've learned everything about your company. I'm ready to move on to something different, something fun. So I've had my resume is 2 pages long. It was embarrassing. But anyhow, I wanted to, and it's a crazy story. So back in, I think it's 2014 at this time, I want to say. The whole like Trayvon Martin thing happened, right? And the whole Black Lives Matter and stuff, and that's another, podcast episode for another day. But I was young, I was vibing, I was like really into that. I was like, oh no, like somebody can't just walk up and shoot somebody just because they feel like it. That's not a thing. So I was like, I'm going to go and I'm going to be a police officer and I'm going to change the world. Like that was like my whole goal. Like I was going to go, I was going to the academy, I was going to get the suit, I was going to get on Facebook with the whole police uniform and have like Black Lives Matter all over my stuff and just like be that guy. And I was like okay with being like the pariah on the police force. I didn't even know what that meant back then, but that was my goal. So I go to the police academy, go through the whole rigmarole, take the test, pass the test. It's time for the physical. I get sick. My gallbladder busts. So I'm like halfway like out of this earth. So I missed the test. I don't get the job. I'm upset. I get the most humbling job ever on earth. I am a cook at one of my kids' schools. My kids loved it. They thought it was cool. Hey, I get to see my dad. And I'm like, this ain't cool. Like, you don't want to do this? I'm like, what is this? I've had all this experience. At that time, I've had experience in banking. I was in construction sales, and I was over a mentoring program in Boston, and I'd done all these great, grand things. I took a lot of pride in that for someone who doesn't have a degree. Like I've gotten to sit in a lot of rooms with people who are doctors and all this other stuff, and they have MBAs, and I'm like, no, I don't have a degree, but I'm doing your job better than you. So I took pride in that. But I guess I had to be humbled in a way. So after that humbling experience, I end up at Nike, take a lot of journeys, literally start from the bottom. So when people complain at my job about the work or whatever, I was like, listen, I came in this building making $10.86 an hour. No complaints. Like, you're not going to find like a tear from me. I'm sorry. But the work I do now is amazing. I'm an instructional designer. So if anybody's in any type of logistics or just any kind of business, instructional designers are everywhere. They're called different things in different companies. But in a nutshell, it's kind of like the education wing of corporate America. So anytime that, Nike decides to have some grand new idea or some grand new training, it's my job to create that training, to build it, whether it's a training model, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a video. Right now, I'm actually building a virtual reality tour through our distribution centers.
Very cool.
So instead of hopping on a plane from Oregon, because that's what the headquarters is, to come all the way to Memphis, you can just click on the website. It's like Google Maps, and you can take a walk through the facility. So that's pretty cool.
And so you've been there for about a decade now.
Yeah, for about a decade now.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
Now, I left for 9 months to try to, do business on my own. That didn't work out too much. But, yeah, I was trying trucking for like a quick second.
So you brought up podcasting.
Yes.
How did your podcast start, and how did you come up with the name for it? And I know that the name has changed, pretty recently.
Times. Yeah. So my podcast journey is like everything else, just winding road. I don't think, for whatever weird reason, Hashem doesn't allow me to go on a straight path to anything. I'm just this forever winding road, I guess. I don't know. But back in 2018, I know it's like 2 years after the Cubs won the World Series, because I was there with all
You
those.
don't need to remind me of that. You know that I'm a Cleveland fan.
We beat you guys.
Yeah, the rain delay. Yeah, we don't need to talk about the rain delay that cost the
Listen,
World Series.
if you guys can't hit a ball that has nothing to do with the rain, but whatever. But 2016 won the World Series. I'm sitting on the couch, my cousin's couch, talking about something. Her boyfriend, now husband, comes in talking about how he believes like black people are like the original Jews. I don't know if people are familiar with the whole Black Hebrew Israelite movement. It's not good, but for some people it's a window. For other people, it's a terrible anti-Semitic tool. Thankfully for me, it was a window into something I've never heard of. I had no again, I'm from Southern Illinois. Chabad just came into Carbondale 5 years ago. So me growing up, I didn't know what a Jewish person was. To me, the only reference of a Jewish person was Charleston Heston, which I don't even know if he's actually Jewish, but he was Moses to me.
He was Moses, yeah.
And Fiddler on the Roof. Like, that's all I knew.
Two good examples.
Yeah. So when I heard this, I was like, oh, that's interesting. I've never just thought in my mind about Jewish people, about Israel, none of that. And I just kind of set that to aside a little bit. And then 2018, I went back to their house for a wedding. in Chicago, and he's mentioned all this stuff again. So we're talking. And long story short, I end up going back home, studying up a lot of stuff again, because I'm already in this spiritual journey of like, I've left the church. I know that's not it. I'm not doing that anymore. So I was like, let me look up this thing. And I picked up the Bible for the first time in a long time, start reading it. I went from Genesis all the way to Deuteronomy in I think like a month. Like I was just so hungry just to know something new. So in that process, I joined like the Messianic community deal. And in Memphis, I think most people know what that is. I think it's like right around the corner from here. And in that, I was like, well, other people need to know about this. Do other people know about this? And then I had my own kind of like back and forths. And my original podcast was called Jacob Seeds Podcast. And it was like me having therapy. And then everybody else is just listening. This is my journey, like going back and forth and with, should we convert? Should we not convert? Like, what does it mean to be a Noahide? What are all the issues that are going on with, like, has anybody ever studied the migration of the African slaves that came through on the ships? And then you find out, like, oh, well, some of them are legit, and there's rabbis in Israel who have legitimized the Igbo tribe in Nigeria, and some of those tribe members are part of the lineage here in America. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of hard to, I don't think there's like a Igbo marker, like there's a Cohen marker, right. So there's no way to DNA, there's no really way to know for sure, but I thought it was very interesting. So that was my very first podcast. And then it got really big, but it became a little bit too influential. And one of the things I used to say is, I don't want to influence anybody. I just want to inform you. I don't want to influence you. I don't want someone to hear my words and just like run with it. I could be wrong. And I'm okay to admit when I'm wrong, and I can change. And my views change a lot sometimes. If I'm presented with new information that makes sense, that's logical. Oh, okay, I was wrong. I need to shift. Just like the blue pen thing. I sat there. I still wore my blue pen for that whole Shabbos. Sat there, and then I had a conversation with our rabbi, and then someone else I forgot. And then I actually saw the commercial. I think that's what did it for me. I was like, this ain't good for Jews or black people. This is embarrassing. I gotta find a new lapel pin to wear. So I did buy a new lapel pin. But anyway,
I got a Bornblum one for you if you want.
No, I'll wear it. I'll wear it proudly. But then when I came this way, I was like, what can I do to further the awareness of who Jewish people really are, what Zionism really is, not just these conjectures, these conspiracy theories and all this. And then especially when the whole Kanye stuff happened, when the Daily Wire stuff happened with Candace Owen, I was like, well, somebody, I know only like 40 people are ever going to listen to me, but there needs to be a voice out there. And, and that's one of my gifts is a voice. So originally started as kosher commentary. I got some feedback on that. I was like, oh, some people may think you're talking about food, and they may not listen. I was like, well, okay, I'll change it to kosher and black then, because it's kind of the same thing. But then everybody thought, well, do I have to be, that question I kept getting was, do I have to be a black Jew to listen to this? I'm like, no, it's for everybody. So I did more explaining about the podcast and people actually listening. So then it was just, okay, what is something that every single Jewish person, religious, non-religious, black, white, Israeli, you're from Cleveland, like who wants to listen? That Jewish podcast. Very simple. You see that on Spotify and you're like, oh, I'll give it a listen. So that's how that came about.
Very
Long
cool.
story.
Oh, that's a great story. That's a great story.
Yeah.
All right, any last questions for me?
Sure. Let's see. Pick out the last two really good questions on here, all right? So how has being a husband and a father shaped the way you think about your responsibility as a head of school?
That's a great question. I think for me, I wouldn't work in a school that I wasn't comfortable sending my kids to. And so that certainly plays into some of the things that I think about in the role that I have. Making sure that the curriculum is the type of curriculum that it is, making sure that the teachers are the type of teachers that they are. I think that knowing who I am and what I want for my kids, I want other people to be able to have that also. So it might start with that idea of like, all right, I'm going to try and make things in a way that I'm comfortable sending my kids to it. but it's more than that. I want to make it a place that other people are comfortable sending their kids to. Yeah. When Jessica and I first came, and I've told this story numerous times, when we first came to town to visit, it was 2017, and we came to visit, and we had a tour of the school. And as we're walking back in through our breezeway back into the main building, after we've seen the whole campus, Jessica leans over to me, and the people who are giving us the tour couldn't hear. And she said, "I don't care if you get the job. This is the school I want to send our kids to."
Wow.
And one of the things that we really loved about Bornblum, I think you'll like this answer, is that when we were here for the visit, we actually saw that the student population was more diverse than the student population in other cities that we lived in.
Yeah.
When I look at those schools in other cities, they were white Jews going to that school, like 100%. And when we came here, and not like it was a ton of kids, but the fact that there were Jews who were black who were in the school. There were Jews who were Asian who were in the school. There were Hispanic Jews that were in the school. When we saw that here, I think for us, it made us really feel like this was a community.
Yeah.
I've always raised my kids very, very strongly in the idea of what makes a community is when everybody can come together.
Yeah, that's good.
And that's what I love about this school, is that everybody can be represented here, and everybody can take what they want and get a great Jewish education here and still be the person that they are when they leave this school.
Yeah.
And to me, that was a really important thing, and that's one of the things that I love here. But I would say almost every school that I've worked at, that's been the case. It's been a place that I knew would be the right place for my kids. And if it wasn't, it was going to be something that I was going to work on, because I have these high values of things that I want for my kids. And if I have those high values for my own kids, then I'm certainly going to have them for other people's as well.
Absolutely. And then one last question. So especially a little bit before October 7th, but especially afterwards, we're seeing this boom of a lot of our Jewish brothers and sisters coming back to, whether it's you want to be colored religious, from whatever it is, they're rapping tefillin for the first time in years. They're putting on a kippah for the first time in years. They're lighting Shabbos candles for the first time in, God knows how long. And I'm sure one of the things on their mind as well is, should I send my kid to Bornblum or Hebrew Academy? Should I keep them at White Station, or should I keep them at Cleveland Public High School or PS90? I don't know if there's a PS90 in New York. I'm just making that up. But where do I send my kids now that I'm getting this benefit of learning who I am again, coming back to a Jewish identity, and I want the same thing for my kids. So with that said, if you could speak directly to every Jewish parent listening right now, what would you want them to understand about the power of Jewish education?
It's a really, really good question. I think one of the things that we often hear is, if I send my kid to a Jewish school, they're going to be secluded and isolated and just be with people that are like them, and they're not going to experience the real world. I think that the real world is scary.
Yeah.
And I think that in order to be able to truly face the real world, you need to be comfortable with who you are. And I think that the reason that people should be sending their kids to Jewish schools, and we have 2 great Jewish schools here in Memphis, and there are great Jewish schools all across the country, I think the reason that they're so important is because they give kids identity. They give kids community. It's okay that they're small. Some aren't, but it's okay that our schools here are small, because you learn how to advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
You learn how to form relationships with people. You learn how to speak to adults in true and genuine ways. You have adults who truly get to know you, get to know your strengths, get to know your weaknesses, get to know how to advocate for you, how to work with your parents to make sure that your education is top-notch and everything that it needs to be. And that connection that they get to Judaism, and it's not just the religious connection. And you're right, there are plenty of people who now are lighting Shabbat candles or are keeping kosher. Plenty of restaurants in Israel have done that. There's definitely a surge in people's connection to Judaism.
Yes.
Which I think is a little bit of a different way of saying it. I think in light of that, it's even more important now that we're embracing who we are as a Jewish people and learning how to arm ourselves with the things that we need, so that way when we are going out into the broader world, that we're able to do that in the best way possible. When I think about the education for kids at the age that they are, adolescents, middle school age kids, those are the most vulnerable, hardest times for kids. The middle school years are the hardest time for kids. The pressures, the social pressures, the interactions, the texting.
Yes, the texting.
It is so hard for kids.
Yes.
So to keep them in a place where they are loved and cared for and not falling through the cracks, and where their identity is being emboldened in a beautiful, strong way, I can't think of a better thing to do for your kids. It's not that it's too religious. Do we do religious things here at the school? There are some religious things that we do at the school. Yeah. Judaism has religion as part of it, but the cultural feeling, the connection to other Jews, the safety and security of being around like-minded people whose values are the same as yours.
Yeah.
It's not just that Rabbi Lichter said that we should be investing our money in Jewish day schools, that we should be sending our kids to Jewish day schools.
Absolutely.
I'd scream that from the rooftops. You chose it, right? I mean, you chose to have your kids in a Jewish day school before you even fully became a Jew, because you knew the importance of that identity for you and for your family. It breaks my heart when people don't take that opportunity.
Yeah. Good answer. Great answer.
Well, this was fun.
This was fun.
I appreciate this having an opportunity to really have this discussion, have a conversation about our lived lives as Jews. I mean, we look very different from each other, but we still look the same.
We look a little bit like
I mean, we both got beards. I've really enjoyed over the last couple of years getting to know you, getting to know your family, and also seeing the beauty of the Memphis Jewish community and how they embraced your family.
Yeah.
Because that's not necessarily something that would happen everywhere, but like just the way that you guys have been embraced gives me another renewed feeling of the power of community and what Memphis is really all about. So
absolutely.
Kol hakavod to you and your family for doing what you do and inspiring other people to be proud Jews living in the world that we live in.
Yeah, thank you. It was great getting to know you as well, and we'll continue to get to know one another and invite each other to our Shabbat tables. And I know it's not easy to invite 5 people on a,
We love it. You guys don't need enough. No, we love having you guys over. No, anytime. It's nice that we have that opportunity to come together as friends, and that makes us family.
Absolutely.
And to me, that's an important thing too.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys really enjoyed that conversation. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, again, please share this with somebody that you know. Please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. And as always, light up the darkness, change the world. Peace.
Thanks for listening to That Jewish Podcast. If this episode meant something to you, helped you grow, or made you feel more connected to the Jewish people, please follow or subscribe so you don't miss future conversations. Share this episode with a friend, especially someone who sees things a little differently. That's how unity gets stronger. And if your platform allows it, leave a rating and review to help more people discover the show. Also search That Jewish Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and WhatsApp. This is a space for thoughtful conversations about Jewish life, Jewish identity, and bringing all of Israel closer together. Until next time, stay connected, keep growing, and keep showing up for one another.